everyone. Hello, everyone. And welcome to St. John's High School birthday party and the pageant that will include some of the history of the Antrim and Hudson schools. The year is 1887, and a grand one it is too. The thriving little city of St. John, Kansas is 8 years old. The Santa Fe Railroad arrived just last year on the 4th of July.
One summer night, about midnight in 1887, all was dark and hushed when the train pulled up into the South Broadway station. No streetlights helped guide the way for Madeline McKay as she stepped from the train, but following the conductor's instructions, she walked up north the dusty road to find the town. There were no lights until she reached the square, and then only one in an upstairs office window. She climbed the stairs and found 4 men playing cards. One of them, a nice young man named Paul Nagel, directed her to her friend's home.
With the dawn, Madeline saw the new grade school being built on North Broadway. It was being built of bricks made at the brick kiln at the West 5th Street. Young John Sibman held tall the brick to the school. It was an awesome sight, a large building with a bell tower cupola, giving it the appearance of an ancient castle. 88 was a big year, for it was really the first year in the new St. John's School building, and 6 teachers had been hired, and now there would be 2 years of high school.
All the way down south in the Antrim community, some 12 miles, there was a 1-room schoolhouse. No longer did the students meet in the soddy as they did in '78, but the blizzards could still trap teacher and students in the school. The little school was well stocked with canned food, wood, bedrolls, and even feed for the horses. Most students walked, but some had a mule or a horse to ride, or even a buggy.
Around 1900 in Hudson, Herman Witt had his first job. He built the fires and swept the floors at the school for the handsome salary of 5 cents a day. A.O. Sievers, Alois Hahn's grandfather, was his teacher. And at Hudson in 1906, a larger room was added to the school. Each child had to bring his own slate and a Sears Roebuck catalog. A Sears Roebuck catalog, what for?
In 1900, the first alumni banquet for St. John High School was held in a small opera house on the east side of the square. That graduating class was all girls, and they called themselves the Naughty 13.
In 1905, a four-year high school course began. There were literary societies and drama. The convention hall was finished in 1906, and culture had come to town. Many a nervous graduate climbed the dark, narrow, shaky steps to the stage for graduation exercises. An annex was added to the school that year, but the place to be for graduation until the year 1939 was Convention Hall. In fact, the baccalaureate address for the class of 1910 was given in Convention Hall by Governor St. John, the governor after whom the town of St. John was named. On stage for the 1907 graduation were Mary Nagel and Rosa Welsh Stewart, who both played piano solos. Sonia Alpers, the valedictorian of the class of 1987, will play for us tonight. At the graduation in 1907 in Convention Hall, Wayne Ring, Darlene Bartlett's father, gave the welcoming address, and Leah Harlan sang a solo. Sig Moll gave out the diplomas, and there was band music.
In 1907, football was introduced. Anyone could play, and if one of the players was injured, the principal took his place. Some of these teams were Stanford, Pratt, and Hutchinson. Well, you know, I know Kurt and Joel over here can remember the last game of the season in '81 against Claflin. This was the clincher to make the state playoffs. Gosh, if we'd only had you that year, Mr. Bartlett, I don't know what would happen.
Remember our friend Madeline? Well, she married Ed Wylup, and she and that nice young man, Paul Nagel, both served on the school board. In fact, their names were on the cornerstone of the new high school built on South Broadway in 1910. Those builders, always improving the school. They worked fast, everybody humming that new sound ragtime Skeets Cadman had introduced us to. Things were happening at Antrim and Hudson during those preteen years of the 1900s. Of course, students were still walking the dusty roads to school, but whenever the county superintendent visited Antrim, he was besieged by students begging him to get a rural high school started there. It worked, and by 1912, 2 years of high school were added in Antrim. Hudson's new school was a 2-story brick building complete with a basement. St. John High School published a paper called The Echo. It carried news about sports, school spirit, and on Friday following the Turkey Day victory over Stafford, the whole school celebrated. The school yelled.
Gee, I don't know, Steve. In 1916, a south wing was built on the high school. The school now had an orchestra, girls' glee club, literary societies, YMCA, yearbook, chapel, and convention hall once a week, and the girls formed a good basketball team. Football became even more important, and when Big Red Budge decided to go to high school, he and Rusty Kosman, who was 6 feet 4 inches tall, were both good, big athletes. Big athletes. Antrim held its first high school graduation in 1916. 2 graduates, Louisa Roberts and Horace Malin, are still living. As if to celebrate the occasion, that year Antrim built a high school and later a dormitory across the road for teachers.
But times were changing, and a different kind of music filled the air. It was World War I.
kid on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, no delay, go today. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. Tell your sweetheart not to mind, to be proud her boys in line. Over there, send the word over there, that the eggs are coming, the eggs are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over, over there, over there, over there. Send the word over there, that the eggs are coming, the eggs are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over, over there.
In 1918, classes ended in April so the boys could help out on the farms. And for 3 years, the alumni banquets were canceled. Receptions were held in the study hall. Anyone who was in St. John's Schools October 13, 1921, remembers that day. Louise Nagel Carrier was walking home for lunch when she saw smoke coming from the top of the livery stable that stood where the Witt Center now stands on 3rd Street. That day, most of the east side of the city square burned. A strong wind threatened the grade school and other buildings. With the 20s came the flapper style, Charleston, and school groups that once called themselves the Perkins Family, the Dirty Seven, Comic Group, the Bumpers, and RATS. Are there any members of those groups in our audience who have the courage to admit it here tonight?
Well, in the 1920s, letter sweaters could be any color you wanted because persons bought their own. Some had gold and black because, hey, what kind of color should a tiger be anyway? But school colors weren't blue and white for sure until the late 20s. Just look at all those sweaters and jackets. Some of these lettermen are parading without a jacket or sweater because of time, moth, or a few of those pounds that made it impossible. Elmer Hahn remembers well the football game in 1916 against Coldwater. St. John football team won that game 109-0. He said he never ran so much in his life. Zeke Carrier in the Knothole game saw that game from atop a windmill tower. He knew from that time on that he had to play football, and play he did too. Now, in our family, the story goes that in the fall of 1928, fullback Rusty Taylor got the ball and raced 90-some yards to the goal line to help win the most important game of the year. Yeah, that's right, you guessed it, Stafford. Now, he and his teammates were fast, but running along the sidelines as fast as any person on the field was my great-grandpa, Roy Taylor. Now, after that game, Tudor the merchant had a customer. My great-grandpa Roy bought my granddad Rusty a new suit. No wonder we all love football so much. Hey, thanks a lot, Letterman. How about these guys, huh? Speaking of the love of athletics, how many of you remember that first love? High school romance for some turned into a lifetime love affair, but for others, it was just a passing fancy.
My old flame, I can't even think of his name. And it's funny now and then how my thoughts go flashing back again to my old flame. My old flame. My new lovers all seem so tame, for I haven't met a gent so magnificent or elegant as my old flame. I've met so many who had fascinating ways, a fascinating gaze in their eyes. Some who took me up to the skies, but their attempts at love were only imitations of my old flame. I can't even think of his name, but I'll never be the same until I discover what became of my old flame. I've met so many who had fascinating ways, a fascinating gaze in their eyes. Some who took me up to the skies, but their attempts at love were only imitations of my old flame. I can't even think of his name, but I'll never be the same until I discover what became of my old flame.
The 1930s, in spite of the Dust Bowl and Depression, held some marvelous moments for students. The Trillinghams and Jake Dawkey made music come alive. Students danced to the big band sound. Dances couldn't be held in the school. Heavens, that wasn't even thought about at that time. But there were some good ones upstairs in the Tudor building over what is now the ASCS offices. Jake Dahlke came as band director in 1934 and led the band to 2 national championships. An important event occurred in 1937, and we're pleased to have with us tonight the class of 1937. The celebration of the 50th anniversary of St. John High School and the publication of the Golden Book and its school history came out in that year too. By that time, 1,000 students had graduated from St. John. To date, there have been 2,911 graduates, 445 from Hudson, and 206 from Antrim.
Round in the twilight come stealing shadows of days that are gone, dreams of the old days revealing, memories of love's golden dawn. Memories, memories, dreams of love so true. O'er the days of memories, I'm drifting back to you. Childhood days, wildwood ways, among the birds and bees. You left me at home, but still you're my home in my beautiful memories.
1939, kindergarten was added to the curriculum. Then came the most exciting activity in 50 years. A new school building for grades K through 12 was constructed around the old grade school, which was later demolished. Kate Carter said it was sure hard to give out spelling words with all that noise going on.
And now the 40s. There were some fantastic times in the 40s and some tough times too. World War II took its toll of Kansans. Many boys upon graduation from high school left immediately for war. The community worked together and the school kept doing its part. Governor Payne Ratner spoke at the dedication of the new school. Pep and enthusiasm were at an all-time high. Football at its finest could be seen on a Friday night or on a beautiful afternoon. 1947 was the year, undefeated season, and great band North Stafford would play them. Coach Peterson, the Kelly Boys, Long, Estes, Kays, Humphreys, Noyes are some of the names. Homecoming queens and princesses riding in a convertible was the thrill of a young girl's heart. And then remember Doc Adams was still pacing the sidelines as he had done for so many years of football. Even in the snowstorm at Larned when they couldn't even find the goal line.
Who is that guy, Steve?
Beats me. Looks a lot like Doc Adams.
Antrim had some excitement in 1948 for Eldine Curtis. He was salutatorian of his class. The story he tells his children is that they should each strive to reach their goals, for he was salutatorian of his class, and surely they should as well. Well, come on, Eldine, tell the real story. The thing he omits is that Carl Dudry was the valedictorian, and they were the only two in their class. Their grades were very, very close, however. The only twins to graduate from Antrim were Bernice and Bernita Leatherman, and that happened in 1949, the year the Antrim Rural High School closed its doors and the students transferred to St. John. It was, in a sense, the end of an era.
I've been asked to read 2 stanzas of a poem that my sister, Viva Malin Davidson, wrote when she graduated from Antrim in 1919. This dress is the one she wore at that graduation, and this lavalier was the gift to her at that time. This poem, I'll just read the 2 stanzas of it, is a parody on Kipling's When Earth's Last Picture is Painted. When the last quiz paper's been graded and the record is placed on the book, when the last big flunks have faded and their texts have been thrown in the brook, we shall rest, and faith we shall need it, go to sleep for a week or 2, till the far drear chimes of the college shall put us to work anew. So farewell, old gold and purple, someday we may see you again. Goodbye, old friends and schoolmates, nor forget the good times that have been. And dear teachers, we appreciate your patience. You have led us this whole year through. Just one more word and we'll finish. Old Antrim, here's to you.
The Antrim School still stands and serves as a community center. The 4-H club meets there. Alumni meetings and dinners are held each year, and basketball is still played in the gym on Sunday afternoons and over holidays. The undefeated 1982 state champs did it with the help of the Antrim gym. So Antrim really laid claim to them. Sports were always a big thing at Antrim from the first. They played basketball out on an outside dirt court, and their girls' teams were powerhouses. Guaranteed to make a change in study habits for students forever. Used to be, folks would go to the movies on a Saturday night, but now you could drive up or stand and watch the black and white flickerings in the window of Cohen Electric. This newfangled picture machine was called a television, TV. Know anything about that, Steve?
Come to think of it, I have heard of Cohen Electric and TV. In fact, I've been taught all my life that the two are synonymous. So I know all about the 50s. I've heard about rock and roll and the Beatles too. During the 50s, students didn't even know anything about Convention Hall and all the school activities that used to go on there. But they all loved to go to Teen Hall after the ball games, not knowing that their Teen Hall was actually the stage of Convention Hall. Now at Hudson in the early 50s, they had football that was really football, 6-man football to be exact. In 1952, the Colorado State six-man champs came to Brown Park to play under the lights, or to play the Kansas State champs, then Hudson. Under the lights, a crowd of 3,500 saw the Hudson Powerhouse win 38-14.
Well, I guess the 50s were the best times of all. Well, that's what my mom made me say. Sorry, Steve. The classes in the 40s ended the sneak day for them, but good old freshman initiation was still around. The old gym was packed out for ball games, and the cheerleaders were great. Speaking of cheerleaders, I think we have some here tonight representing our school down through the years, and I think some of them can even still wear the uniforms.
I thought she held out better than that, Rusty.
Yeah, I don't know.
More room was needed, and a band room and boys' shower were added to the high school, and 4 rooms were added on the east wing of the grade school section. Plenty was happening in the 60s. State debate champs, a major building program, addition of the new gym, vocal music room, office space, and a new junior high area. In the entranceway, a tiger's head designed by Dick Scroggin in 1954 made everyone aware that they were in tiger country. In 1966, the Hudson and St. John school districts unified and became USD number 350. And do you know what the Department of Education did that year, Rusty?
I don't know, Steve.
They increased the total number of school days the very year I started to high school. During the 60s, a variety of outstanding musicals were presented under the direction of Omar Norton. One of the favorites was Call Me Madam. 2 of the stars are with us tonight, Jerry Will and Diana Frances Fox.
I hear singing, but there's no one there. I smell blossoms, but the trees are bare. All day long I seem to walk on air. I wonder why, I wonder why. I keep tossing in my sleep at night, and once more I've lost my appetite. Stars that used to twinkle in the skies, they're twinkling in my eyes. I wonder why.
You don't need analyzing. It is not so surprising that you feel very strange but nice. Your heart goes pitter-patter. I know just what's the matter, because I've been there once or twice.
Put your head on my shoulder. You need someone that's older. I rub down with a velvet glove. There's nothing you can take to relieve that pleasant ache. You're not sick, you're just in love. You
I
don't need
hear singing, but
analyzing.
there's no
It is not
one there.
so surprising that you
I
feel
smell
very
blossoms,
strange
but
but
the trees are
nice.
bare.
Your heart
All
goes
day long
pitter
I seem
patter.
to
I know
walk
just
on air.
what's the
I
matter,
wonder
'cause
why.
I've been there once or
I
twice. Put your head
keep
on my
tossing in
shoulder.
my
You
sleep
need
at
someone
night.
that's older. I rub
And
down
once
with
more
a
lose
velvet
my
glove.
appetite.
There's
Stars
nothing
that
you
used
can
to
take
twinkle in
to
the
relieve that
sky
pleasant
are
ache.
twinkling
You're
in
not sick,
my
you're
eyes.
just
I
in
wonder
love.
why.
You
I
don't need
hear singing and
analyzing.
there's no
It is not
one there.
so surprising that you
I
feel
smell
very
blossoms
strange
and
but
the trees are
nice.
bare.
Your heart goes
All day
pitter
long I seem
patter.
to walk
I know just
on air.
what's the
I wonder
matter,
why.
because I've been there
I
once or
wonder
twice.
why.
Put your
I
head
keep
on my
tossing in
shoulder.
my
You need
sleep
someone
at
that's
night.
older. I rub down
And
with
once
a
more
velvet
lose my
glove.
appetite.
There's
Stars
nothing
that
you
used
can
to
take
twinkle
to
in
relieve
the
that
sky
pleasant
are
ache.
twinkling in
You're not sick,
my
you're
eyes.
just
I wonder
in love.
why.
We talked about the 60s being the building years. Well, 1969 brought us the beautiful new Ida Long Goodman Memorial Library. Quite an asset for a town this size. Built both for our school and community. We've mentioned all the building and about sports, music, drama, and debate, but academics have always been stressed in our school as well. Well, one particular class felt it was their duty to be renowned for their academic prowess. So they had 5 valedictorians. The class of 1960 had as their valedictorians Jane Wiles Bennington, Nancy Wagner Bernard, Patty Walker Dale, Susan Cole Pomerly, and Marilyn Snell Green. Academics have always been a key part of St. John's schools.
The 70s and 80s were laden with champions. If you will look to your right on the wall, you will see it's kind of obvious, all the state champion pennants up there. The cross-country champs were coached by Charlie Rose. The 1974 boys state basketball team was coached by Ivan Williams, and the Class 2A state Kansas champs. The indoor and outdoor track champs of 75, 76, 79, and 80 belonged to Mr. Blyde and his boys. I think it was Mr. Blyde's speeches that always did it. Even if you hated track, who could turn down Mr. Blyde when he sat you down on the bleachers, gave you one of those famous persuasive exhortations? You wouldn't dare not go out for track. Now there's a man for Coach Blyde. By the way, while we have this going on this evening, the St. John High School girls and boys are competing in regional track meet, getting ready for state, and it's being held at Cheney tonight. In 1976, the Hudson School became the 5th and 6th grade students' own private school. Now that was a pretty big deal. Your very own school, no little kids to bother you, and no big kids to boss you around. Girls' athletics were introduced in the 70s with tennis, volleyball, basketball, track, and cross country available. The band did it again under the direction of Bill Clausing. Ones at state. 7 times in the last 11 years, the Tiger Band has received ones at state. That is a record unequaled by any other Kansas State 2A school.
Then in 1982, Topeka had to get ready for district number 350 again, because when the folks from Hudson, St. John, and Antrim community descended, they were not to be denied. The basketball team and their coach, Lauren Weens, were the winners of State Class 2A Basketball Championship. As they did in 1974, the Sportsmanship Award was won once again for St. John. The cars and buses carried fans back and forth, but many stayed overnight in Topeka. The final night of the state championship, the Tiger Band was chosen to play, and Mr. Bartlett was asked to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. As the spotlight illuminated the stars and stripes, and the voice of Cleo Bartlett was heard, all were proud and thankful to be a part of that special time in our school's history. Those young men, as well as our school and community, shall always cherish those special moments. Teachers have had such an influence on our lives. Names like Trillingham, Dalkey, Carter, Hall, Hood, Hillary, Dykes, Smith, Bartlett, Heifel, Smith, and Smith will live on forever.
Student council presidents have always been important. I know because I was one. Ever since the student council was organized in 1926, there have been some interesting moments and just a few problems to be handled. What about the exciting moments, like who put the live crows in the lockers? Where did the cow come from? And super gluing Mrs. Grunder's door shut over noon hour. J Club initiation, bicycles appearing in the hall or in the back of pickups. I won't say anything. Cars mysteriously parked on the lawn, and this one that always got me, white mice in the vending machine. And there's a lot more I'm sure each of you can remember.
Yes, Rusty, our school has all kinds of memories tucked away in its lockers. Class parties, proms, plays, and friends. Friends always. So much of 100 years. What would Madeline McKay say today? The train doesn't even stop here anymore. Many of the upper rooms on the square are no longer used, but there are still young people who will help a stranger, many people who will help a stranger. The square is even more lovely than when Madeline first saw it. And our school, well, it's grown and expanded, and the students of 100 years have achieved in so many different fields. The building. No, not again. I said building, but I didn't mean we're building anything. But yes, I guess we are. Our school is still building character, confidence, academic skills, and all that one needs for the world today. So we are in the building process, fellas. You were right. Before we end this evening, we would like to extend a special thank you to those responsible for writing and directing this production this evening. Virginia Taylor Russell, Helen Mullen Gruber, Phil England, Omar Norton, Bill Clausing, and Eileen Matthews. Could we have a round of applause for those people, please?
Well, we're about to close things down now, Steve. And you know, our students come from the Pratt County line in the Antrim community to the Barton County line north of Hudson, and they all work together. That's the way it's supposed to be, I guess. We're 100 years young, and just look at us now. We're ready to go on to the next 100. And if any of you are around to celebrate our school's bicentennial, suppose you'll remember the words and help us all sing along right now to the school song. I think it'd be kind of fitting to everyone stand up and we can see if we can sing this tonight together. It's on your programs, I believe.